5 minutes, a gentleman from California, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again to our witnesses for being here. I want to just start, I know we're talking a lot about the federal workforce. I served as mayor of my hometown, Long Beach, for 8 years before I got here, and so I'm really proud of the 6,500 employees that made up our city and all of their hard work, and I'm also proud of our federal workforce. And of course, we all know that there can always be improvements, and there are always ways of looking at efficiencies and making our workforce stronger, and I think those that work on the front lines will tell you that as well. I think unfortunately, there are some here that have tried to smear our federal workforce and continue to bring up, I think, factually incorrect statements, and certainly things that are not true about the way our workers operate here, not just in D.C., but as we know, a lot of the federal workforce is all across the country. And they want to justify their plans to fire thousands of people and gut critical programs by attacking the Social Security Administration and other agencies within the government. Now, this is, of course, one of our first hearings as we're opening up the new Congress, and Republicans, not surprisingly, are taking aim at the Social Security Administration, and we know that's not a coincidence. And I want to start with, Commissioner O'Malley, thank you for being here, of course, and for your work overseeing what I believe is one of the most important agencies in our entire government. Just briefly, Americans have earned their Social Security benefits, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And exactly as you know, this program has been the backbone of our society.
Absolutely.
Gives millions of people the ability to live with dignity and security. And make no mistake, you know it, we know it, there are right-wing extremists, some in Congress, that want to privatize and cut Social Security. Now, Commissioner O'Malley, we know that Elon Musk, who at this point I believe is essentially the co-president, has called for cutting at least $2 trillion to federal spending. And actually more recently, he's actually said, well, no, it's more like $1 trillion that I want to cut of federal spending. Now, do you believe it's possible to reduce federal spending by $1 trillion without cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid?
No, sir, I don't believe that's mathematically possible.
I agree with you. And if you add up the entire discretionary federal budget, which is everything from Head Start to protecting our borders, our military, firefighting, federal infrastructure, you actually only get to about $1.7 trillion. So even if you eliminated the Department of Education, Transportation, HUD, the FBI, all science funding, you would still need to cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid to reach that $2 trillion in spending cuts. I think it's important for everyone to understand that the real agenda here is quite dangerous, not just for the federal workforce, not just for the Social Security Administration, but to the entire country. And that Elon Musk, through his, I think, insane ideas, is really calling much of the shots. So I want to show you something to the administrator and to our panelists here. These are some of the programs that we have that essentially are waiting for reauthorization from the federal government. Republicans are often vague about their cuts because obviously they don't want the American people to know what they really want to do. The real plan, of course, they say, is to make sure the federal government is perceived as broken. Federal government workers are all lazy. We have to break it. We have to eliminate it. And now in November, Elon Musk outlined his actual plan to the Wall Street Journal to cut about $500 billion of programs that need to get reauthorized. So here are those programs right from his interview with the Wall Street Journal. We're looking at essentially the single largest program that would actually get cut, according to Elon Musk's plan, would be veterans health care. And it's not just veterans health care at 119 there, if you're looking at all this. You're talking about opioid treatment, the State Department, housing assistance. We're in a huge housing crisis. You're looking at NASA, cutting essentially the entire Department of Education. And these are billions of dollars for programs that are needed for people to survive. And so I think it's really important as we talk about efficiency, which is what Republicans want to talk about in this hearing and others, that it's Elon Musk and his directive is to essentially cut programs and departments that would harm, whether they say the word Social Security or not, the amount of money they want to cut from the federal government would lead to drastic cuts to Social Security and Medicare, period. Those are just the facts. And so I think it's important that we talk about efficiency in the way that is honest and direct with the American people. I also want to just say in conclusion, I think we owe a great deal of respect and admiration to those men and women that are on the front lines working across the country to help American people access their benefits, take care of our military families, and provide care to veterans in our hospitals. And we should not let billionaires attack our federal employees or the Social Security Administration, but we should instead be standing up for them. And with that, I yield back.
From California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I wanted to start by thanking our witnesses for being here. Thank you for hosting this hearing as well. And I wanted to start by just starting with Dr. Resch. It's a very simple question. You can see here an article from the Washington Post. Can you just quickly, so we can take one step back, just mention how much did Elon Musk donate to Republicans in the 2024 election? To Republicans in the last election.
To Republicans overall, I do not know. Well over $250 million to the Trump campaign.
Right, almost $300 million. And in fact, Mr. Musk was the single largest donor in the last cycle. I'm not sure if you knew that or not in this last election. And here's actually the article in the headline from the Washington Post. Elon Musk puts $277 million into the election. He's $200 billion richer this year. $200 billion richer this year. Now, we also know that just in the month after the election, Elon Musk's wealth increased by $170 billion. It should also not be a surprise to anyone that Elon Musk himself holds $20 billion in contracts with the federal government. Now, the truth is that DOGE isn't really about efficiency or reform. What Donald Trump and Elon Musk are actually engineering is the single largest wealth transfer in history. And to pay for the enormous tax cut that's about to come to this Congress in the months ahead, they need to slash spending by trillions of dollars. In fact, Elon Musk himself has said that he wants to slash $2 trillion, $1 trillion from the actual budget. Now, in Trump's first term, we know that he already had a huge tax cut for the richest Americans and corporations. Now he wants to slash it by 1/3 more. But here's the truth. In order to actually get more funds for their tax cut program, they need to slash trillions. And where are they going to do that? Well, they've started. The Department of Education, the Department of Labor, Veterans Benefits, USAID, and eventually Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Right now, as we know, Elon Musk, the richest man on the planet, is trying to destroy USAID with his DOGE team. Now, this is the agency we know that distributes foreign aid, but that's just step one of their plan. Now, of course, we know they're going after the Department of Education. And here's an article from the Washington Post as well. Trump preps order to dismantle the Department of Education as DOGE probes data. Now, let me just begin by saying that their mission is to destroy federal agencies like the Department of Ed, to then save money and then transfer that wealth to Elon Musk, his companies, and their billionaire friends through a massive tax cut. Eliminating the Department of Ed would be catastrophic for children all over this country. I'm a longtime educator. I spent 10 years in the classroom teaching and as an administrator. The funding provided by the Department of Ed is critical to children with disabilities, student loans for colleges, and ensuring that students are protected across this country. The Department of Ed has $160 billion to help kids pay for college, $18 billion for low-income kids at K-12 schools, $15 billion for kids with disabilities. And in most cases, most schools are reliant on the Department of Ed to ensure that students with disabilities or that have additional needs get the education that they deserve. And now all of that is on the line because billionaires and corporations in this country need and want a larger tax cut. So let's be crystal clear about what Elon Musk is actually doing right now. It's a wealth transfer to himself and his billionaire friends. I also just want to note that just recently, and yesterday, in fact, the New York Times reported that now they are accessing the control centers for Medicare and Medicaid services. This can be catastrophic to people across this country. And so this committee, rightly so, has asked and demanded that Elon Musk testify under oath in front of this committee. We know that the law is on the side. We know that what he's doing is unconstitutional. And we demand that he come here and provide answers not just to us, but to the American public. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Garcia.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. And I want to just start off by making something clear. I think we're all here to fight against the lies, the corruptions, and the attacks on our social safety net. Now, we should in no way be cooperating with House Republicans who want to shut down the Department of Education and destroy Medicare and Medicaid. And we should not stand by as the richest man on the planet gives himself and his companies huge tax cuts while the American people get absolutely nothing. Now, I find it ironic, of course, that our chairwoman, Congresswoman Green, is in charge of running this committee. Now, in the last Congress, Chairwoman Green literally showed a dick pic in our Oversight congressional hearing, so I thought I'd bring one as well. Now, this, of course, we know is President Elon Musk. He's also the world's richest man. He was the biggest political donor in the last election. He has billions of dollars in conflicts of interest, and we know that he is leading a power grab, also abided by and encouraged by Donald Trump and, of course, the chairwoman, Congresswoman Green. But I also want to run through what DOGE actually is going to do. It's a demolition plan that's going to run through our government. DOGE is trying to abolish the Department of Education. That means opportunities denied to kids. It means you're ripping away opportunities for children with disabilities who are dependent on this money. You're also halting medical research, which is also critical, which we have to also stop. The idea that we are going to eliminate or destroy the Department of National Institutes of Health, NIH, is crazy. Let's talk about the Department of Labor. We're talking about protections for working people across this country, where people can actually complain about abuses their companies are making against them and their coworkers. Workers are now going to be in danger. And let's also talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, another huge issue for us. Think about the scammers and fraudsters that will be empowered across this country because Elon Musk wants, essentially, these companies have more power over consumers and over people across this country. Look at the Centers for Disease and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That is actually what's being discussed partly today. Healthcare, we're talking about being denied to millions of poor people, working class people across this country. And now, of course, they're on to their largest target, the U.S. Social Security Administration. We're talking about the destruction of the actual social safety net in this country. We know that 1 in 5 Americans collect Social Security, seniors, disabled people. This entire plan is about hurting the American social safety net and destroying our institutions. And it's important that we actually call out what is happening at this subcommittee. This is not about working with the richest man on the planet. This is actually about empowering. This committee wants to empower the richest person in the world to hurt people so they can take all of this money that they so-called want to save and then give it to themselves, their companies, and their billionaire friends. That is the attack that is happening in this committee and across this country, and it's important that we call it out. We also know, of course, that Elon Musk is sending his unqualified DOGE staff to carry out this agenda across all these agencies. And in some cases, actually teenage staffers. No accountability, no experience, and problematic records. They're trying to rob you, and they're probably a minor. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields, and I now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do want to appreciate the work of the GAO. I think there's incredible work that happens there. And of course, a lot of uncovering of waste, fraud, and abuse happens. Mr. Dodaro, I want to thank you for your important testimony. I agree there is absolutely a responsibility for us to look at ways of reducing the deficit to actually make government more efficient. And I think that while I served as mayor before coming to this committee, we worked really hard with our auditor, with our state auditor to do just that. And so thank you for being here. So Mr. Dodaro, I do have some simple yes or no questions for you, which I think are important. Mr. Dodaro, do you believe that the recently firing of promoted federal workers who are therefore on probationary status does anything to solve the important problems that you've raised today? Yes or no?
Well, I agreed to, was sworn to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth sometimes doesn't get reduced to a yes or no answer. And so in that case, I think it's important to look at what functions were being provided and what was done in those cases. But it's important that the rules be followed, that there's certain personnel requirements and rules.
Would you say yes or no?
I would say that, and the question was whether it would solve any of the problems that we identified on the high-risk list, and the answer to that question would be it's doubtful.
Exactly, and I agree with you. I agree. It would be a no. Now, what about has the GAO recommendation ever included firing FAA aircraft safety inspectors who repair air traffic control facilities?
No.
No, I agree. Has the GAO ever made any recommendation on firing USDA animal and plant health inspection service workers who were tracking the bird flu outbreak or other outbreaks in poultry or cattle?
I do not believe so, no.
Thank you. That's a no. Has the GAO recommended firing National Nuclear Security Administration workers who oversee our nation's nuclear stockpile?
No.
What about firing the only locksmith at Yosemite National Park? Has the GAO ever recommended that?
I'm not sure we've ever run into the locksmith at the park.
And the answer to that is you have not.
Right.
And so I thank you for that because, of course, these none of these have ever actually aligned with any of the recommendations that have come out of your office, but yet they are clearly huge priorities for Elon Musk and his DOGE team. It's obviously there's a crusade against the government, against actually helping people across this country, and it's the hypocrisy that we're seeing today and in our committees that I think is quite disturbing to House Democrats. Now, Republican colleagues have spent a lot of time warning about unsustainable deficits. We know that today there is a huge vote, of course, we know, on a budget. Their budget version and bill has a $4.5 trillion tax cut giveaway, essentially, when we should be asking the super rich to actually pay more. And at the center of this, we know, is a huge cut to Medicaid. They're targeting at least $880 billion, maybe more, in Medicaid cuts. Now, in my district alone, we have 300,000 people that are dependent on Medicaid approximately, which is a huge amount of the community and the district. Now, nationally, 80 million people we know are on Medicaid, but it actually impacts every single district across the country. Whether you're talking about Kentucky's 1st District, where 26.5% of the population there, 155,000 people are dependent on Medicaid. Whether it's in Ohio's 4th District, over 100,000 people depend on Medicaid. That's 15% of the population. Whether it's in Louisiana's 3rd District, 196,000, almost 200,000 people dependent on Medicaid. Or in Georgia's 14th District, where 109,000 people, or 16% of the population, are dependent on Medicaid. We know that Medicaid saves lives. These are huge numbers of people. These are folks that are colleagues of ours on the other side of the aisle that are members of this committee, and that oftentimes are here at this committee. So this actually has an impact to our constituents. It means elderly and disabled people won't get their health care, their long-term care. It actually impacts people that have real substance abuse issues. And one other thing that people don't realize about Medicaid, there's a lot of conversation in this country about births and encouraging people to have more children. Medicaid covers 41% of all births in our country. 41% of U.S. births were paid for by Medicaid. And so if this is really about supporting families and about expanding families, we should also be talking about supporting and expanding Medicaid coverage for Americans. We should be providing more coverage, not less. And so with that, I want to thank you again for your work, and I'm hopeful there are enough Republicans in today's vote will do the right thing and avoid these Medicaid cuts. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Mr. for 5 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you to our ranking member, our chairwoman, and I want to thank our witnesses for also for being here today. Thank you all for joining us. So this is obviously our second hearing on DOGE, and certainly as Elon Musk and Donald Trump work together to destroy our federal agencies. Now, a lot has happened in just the last few weeks since DOGE has been off rating the federal agencies that we care so much about. We know that FAA staff have been fired, making our airspace less safe. Veterans Affairs staff have been fired, risking services for our vets. Food safety and health staff have been fired as we face a bird flu pandemic. And all of our agencies have been thrown into chaos by Elon Musk's emails demanding, of course, that federal workers respond to with what they're doing in the last week, which he's now had to, of course, retract. Now, we're here today to discuss Elon's attack on foreign aid, which has been severe. And I want to also bring again, this is a pic of co-president Elon Musk, who, of course, is leading DOGE. And I brought this pic, of course, to our last hearing. And I know some folks were upset by it. But just to be clear, we know that Elon Musk is dangerous, he's incompetent, he's chaotic, and he's killing programs that we rely on. We know that he's helping to push through massive cuts to Medicaid that could rip health care away from millions. He's pushing tax cuts that will benefit him and his billionaire friends. And he is causing real harm to federal workers. Now, some of Mr. Musk's most damaging actions have actually been towards USAID, which we're discussing today. Over 14,000 adults and 1,500 infants have now been estimated to have possibly died because of the Trump administration's attack on AIDS treatment programs that are actually ongoing, as we know. They're hurting real people and damaging our national security. Now, if you look at this chart, and you look at all spending in the government, and you want to look at foreign aid, of course, of which USAID is a part of, it's less than 1% of our total budget. USAID spends around $40 billion per year. Around $40 billion per year of this entire federal budget. Meanwhile, other parts of the budget, including, for example, the Defense Department, spend almost 16% of all federal spending in fiscal year 2025. In fact, about half of other discretionary spending in this chart. Now, the Department of Defense is the only agency to never pass an audit. USAID actually passes audits all the time. And yet we're attacking the one agency that actually is able to pass an audit while we leave untouched the agency, of course, that can't even pass an audit. Last year, the Department of Defense failed to account for 63% of its assets. Trillions of dollars worth of equipment haven't been properly documented. And it's not just their failure to pass an audit. I want to just quickly ask about some key programs that are over budget and behind schedule. This, of course, we know here is the F-35 fighter jet, which will cost us $2 trillion over the course of its life cycle. These planes are often delivered late. They often cannot fly. And right now, we know that the F-35 is $183 billion over budget. Mr. Unger, which is more, the $183 billion cost overrun of the F-35 or the entire USAID budget?
The former that you mentioned, sir.
And this is the literal combat ship. The Navy, by the way, thinks this is basically useless in actual combat. Could have a lifetime cost of over $100 billion, according to ProPublica. Mr. Unger, that's also way more than the entire USAID budget. Is that right?
Yes, way more.
Thank you. And I also want to just ask you about the Central Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program, which has seen its costs soar over 81% during its program cycle. It costs $141 billion with cost overruns and soaring program cost. Mr. Unger, you know what I'm going to ask you, but is $141 billion more than the entire USAID budget?
Absolutely.
Mr. Unger, Elon Musk and his companies have received about almost $40 billion in government contracts, loans, subsidies, and tax credits. That amount, that roughly $40 billion, is basically enough to run USAID for an entire year. Is that correct, Mr. Unger?
That is correct for USAID's budget and the programs that it manages.
The majority isn't talking about Elon Musk programs or asking them here to testify. They're attacking USAID and are supporting a billionaire who gets richer every single day. We've got to push back every single time, and with that, I yield back.
I now recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Mr. Roman.
Thank you, and I think I know we're wrapping up our hearing, so thank you all for our guests and witnesses for being here. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Callio, thank you for your decades of service to the aviation industry. Congratulations on your retirement. I'm a newer member to the committee. I just joined, but I'm very interested in aviation, obviously in transportation. We have an airport in the city of Long Beach, which is also a city airport that we operated when I was mayor just before coming to Congress. I know that there's a lot of concern about, obviously, air safety. Obviously, the major accident that we had is a big part of that, but I want to remind folks back home that flying, aviation travel is still the safest way to travel. You're all doing incredible work, and I know a lot of people have a lot of fears, but it's important to reiterate that, as have many of my colleagues today. But what I am very concerned about, of course, are the sudden decisions by President Trump and certainly Elon Musk to fire more than 400 FAA technicians that we employ through the FAA, and the confusion and the chaos that has caused. Our constituents are scared. There are, of course, accidents that that happen, of course, that we need to investigate. But the concerns about the human capital are very concerning, and I couldn't agree more with my colleagues that have shared their concerns about needing more air traffic controllers, of course, and not less. And of course, we know that every person that works at the FAA, their central mission is safety, whether they're an air traffic controller or not. And the decision to have those firings happen, particularly following the days of the crash, are very concerning. Now, I personally believe that the president and Elon Musk have undermined safety by doing so. These have been, all FAA employees are critical personnel as far as I'm concerned, and we do understand that layoffs have impacted the FAA's Aviation Safety Division, the Certification Office, Flight Standards Office, the Office of Airports, and the Air Traffic Organization. Now, Mr. Sparrow, I know your organization represents FAA employees that have been recently fired by the new administration. Could you give us very briefly just one or two examples of what responsibilities these workers actually had?
Certainly. Thank you for the question, Congressman. So, aviation safety assistance keep the skies safe by supporting aviation safety programs. They handle critical documentation. Aeronautical information specialists collect, evaluate, prepare critical navigation data, maps, and procedures. And then we have maintenance mechanics. They keep facilities running by repairing, maintaining buildings, utilities, infrastructure, everything from carpentry to air conditioning.
Thank you. And to me, all of those are critical positions. We should not be letting go of those positions, especially after having concerns about what's happening right now and trying to make our airspace safer. And so thank you. Mr. Daniels, now you've worked as an air traffic controller. I have to imagine your ability to do your job ensures and depends on other FAA employees. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Thank you, Congressman, and yes, it is. It is an ultimate team sport that we do every day.
So again, we shouldn't be letting go any of these FAA employees, especially right now, and it's a shame that Elon Musk has been given the ability to do so. I just want to also just add, we've heard reports of another priority for Elon Musk, of course, which is potentially to abandon a 15-year, $2.4 billion FAA contract with Verizon, which in my opinion is completely shameful and in my opinion also speaks to the level of corruption that is possible in this process. We know that he wants, of course, the contract to go to his own company that he personally owns, which is SpaceX. Now, I agree with Ranking Member Larson in thinking this absolutely should concern this committee and should concern the entire Congress. I'm also worried about its impact, of course, to workers. Now, Mr. Daniels, given your experience, how much time and money could be wasted if the FAA started back at square one in the process with a new company?
Congressman, thank you for the question. Regardless of who's awarded a contract, it's vital to us that NACA remains involved in being a fully collaborative partner in not only the testing, but also the implementing of any new technologies. We are the ones that are going to make sure that it has cost savings, and we cannot impede the progress of it at all.
And as I understand, the contract with Verizon was to upgrade a huge amount of critical communications infrastructure. Is that correct?
Can you say the question one more time, sir?
The process, the contract with Verizon is to upgrade a huge amount of critical infrastructure.
It's meant to, as they call it, TDM to IP, is to move our telecommunications over.
And as I close, I also just want to make a note that a critical infrastructure, especially when it revolves airspace and safe airspace, is not some sort of tech experiment. It's not some sort of startup. It is not something that we can just break and hope it gets fixed in the future. It is a complex, important project and process, and I hope that we don't move forward with giving Elon Musk the own contract for that work. And so, thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Any further questions from any member?
Thank you. Chair recognizes, and I must add, I don't think anyone's calling for mass deportation, but Chair recognizes Mr. Garcia from California.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today. Before I came to Congress, I was the mayor of Long Beach, California for 8 years. It's a diverse city of about 500,000 people, so I appreciate the work that mayors do. As mayor, I signed the Long Beach Values Act to protect all of our residents, including immigrants and undocumented residents. We set up justice funds to support people that were facing deportation, defending immigrants in court. These are policies that are strongly supported by my residents back home because they are good for all the community and make Long Beach safer. Now, we also know that immigrants make our communities vibrant and thriving places to live. The facts are that sanctuary jurisdictions or jurisdictions that welcome immigrants are overwhelmingly safer than non-sanctuary jurisdictions. That's actually a fact. Immigrants, both documented and undocumented, are also less likely to be incarcerated or to commit crimes than native-born people. We know this to be true. Again, these are facts, and mayors have every right to pursue the policies that you know are best for your residents. Now, the Trump administration has threatened to prosecute some of the mayors on the panel today and force them to comply with his extremist agenda. But however, Mayor Adams, you are in a different position. You, of course, are already facing serious criminal charges. And Mayor Adams, I assume that you are not going to commit perjury today. And I do believe, though, that you have an enormous amount of issues facing you ahead of you. And it means that your criminal charges are absolutely relevant to us today. Bribery, wire fraud, willfully and knowingly conspiring to commit offenses against the United States. Mayor Adams, you, of course, deny these corruption charges against you. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, Congressman.
Thank you. Now, I understand that you are proven innocent unless you are guilty, but you also have, sir, a trust problem. 4 of your deputy mayors have resigned. Now, this is serious, and Republican prosecutors agree that the evidence against you is ironclad, yet Trump's DOJ moved to drop these charges. Now, I just want to be and show this, I want to be just really clear and show this here. Now, look at how the Trump-appointed acting U.S. attorney who is prosecuting you described it. Because the law does not support a dismissal, and because I am confident that Adams committed the crimes with which he is charged, I cannot agree to seek a dismissal. Now, this is a conservative Republican who resigned when Donald Trump pressured her to drop the charges. And we know the Trump administration demanded that the charges be dropped. And this is key. They will be able to refile them against you, Mr. Mayor, at any time. I think, personally, that's why you sat next to the architect of family separation on Fox and Friends. Now, Tom Homan sat next to you and said the following, and I quote, "Getting on Rikers Island is step one. We're working on some other things that we don't really want to talk about on open air because the city council will be putting roadblocks up on us. The mayor and me have a commitment to several other things." Now, this was you, of course, and Mr. Homan, the architect of family separation. This is also incredibly concerning, Mr. Mayor. You sat next to him, you smiled, you badmouthed your own city council. Now, Mr. Mayor, we have a right to know if the Trump administration has actually coerced you into agreeing to anything. And Mayor Adams, I also want to be very clear. Are you selling out New Yorkers to save yourself from prosecution?
There's no deal, no quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong. And anything dealing with this case out of deference to Judge Ho, who's now addressing it, I'm going to refer to his actions.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it appears, to me at least, that you are selling New Yorkers out. It appears that you are working with Tom Homan, who is clearly focused on family separation and deportations and harming New Yorkers and others across the country. Now, every other mayor on this panel is pursuing legal and effective policies that benefit our residents and their communities. Their policies actually uphold public safety. Now, I personally agree with the majority of New Yorkers and think, Mr. Mayor, that you should resign. You should do the right thing. You should step down and resign today. And with that, I yield back.
Would my friend yield? Would my friend yield?
I yield.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I want to be really clear. Were you pressured in exchange for the dropping and dismissal of criminal charges in your indictment to cooperate with the Trump administration on all fronts with respect to immigration? Did any such conversation take place?
I think I was extremely clear.
I cannot hear you, sir.
I think I was extremely clear. No quid pro quo, no agreement. I did nothing wrong but serve the people of New York City.
Thank my friend for yielding.
5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I want to first begin by thanking all of our witnesses that are here today. I know that there's a lot we should be discussing right now at this hearing. We've, of course, had some pretty shocking security breaches that we're just learning about through a lot of our national security officials. We know that Pete Hegseth should be removed from office or should resign. We have Donald Trump, who, of course, is crashing the stock market. He's taken away millions of programs and hurting people across this country to fund tax giveaways to billionaires. And our constituents can't access their Social Security benefits. Now, I think actually Chairwoman Green supports everything that the Trump administration is actually doing. So instead of a serious hearing, we're here to attack NPR and PBS. So let's get right into it. Now, Ms. Kerger, the American people want to know, is Elmo now, or has he ever been, a member of the Communist Party of the United States? A yes or no?
No.
Now, are you sure, Ms. Kerger? Because he's obviously red.
Well, he is a puppet, but no.
Now, that's not all. He also has a very dangerous message about sharing and helping each other. He's indoctrinating our kids that sharing is caring. Now, maybe he's part of a major socialist plot, and maybe that's why the Chairwoman is having this hearing today. But let's talk about somebody else. Let's talk about Cookie Monster. Now, we know that Health Secretary RFK Jr. is coming out against fast food and baked goods. Are we silencing pro-cookie voters? Yes or no? Ms. Kerger.
But cookies are a sometime food.
Well, thank you. And now, I agree with you. And let's also talk about the most important, maybe, character on Sesame Street. This is actually Big Bird. Now, Ms. Kerger, since Elon Musk actually fired USDA workers who have been working on the bird flu, does it make sense to also fire Big Bird? Yes or no?
We would like to keep Big Bird.
I completely agree with you. And now it gets even worse. Now, this is actually a tweet that Big Bird actually sent out about the COVID-19 vaccine, encouraging folks to actually get their vaccination, which, of course, we believe in vaccines. Now, perhaps the reason why we're having this hearing is because our chairwoman, Ms. Green, has actually said some really negative things about getting vaccinations. And that perhaps is why we are here. And so we support Big Bird being pro-vaccine and promoting vaccines across this country. Now, I will admit, though, the extreme liberal agenda that you're all pushing, I think, doesn't stop there. This, of course, is Bert and Ernie. Now, these two guys actually live together. They're friends. They're supportive of each other. Now, that might be triggering to our chairwoman and someone in this committee, and perhaps that's also why we're here today. Ms. Kerger, an important question. Are Bert and Ernie part of an extreme homosexual agenda?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Kerger, and thank you for being a good sport. Now, I'm obviously using some humor here, but the fact that we're sitting here today talking about defunding public television is actually not funny. At a time where we can't agree on basic facts, and while the free press is under attack, we need public media like PBS and NPR more than ever. A large majority of Americans say they trust PBS. And that's exactly why extremists are trying to tear it down. Public broadcasting is a tool for education, for emergencies, and a cherished part of our national fabric. We get huge benefits from a tiny federal investment. The majority and our chairwoman should drop this attempt to silence media voices they don't like. So the message, I think, today is very, very simple. If we're going to get rid of any puppeteers, we should get rid of the one that's actually controlling Donald Trump. Fire Elon Musk and save Elmo. And with that, I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Cloud from Texas for 5 minutes.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Garcia from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first begin by thanking all of our witnesses for being here and for your testimony, obviously for all the comments that we've heard here from both sides of the aisle in the committee. I do think that it's ironic that we're holding a hearing on restoring the trust in the FDA while we're ignoring the single biggest threat to public health today, which is, of course, is Donald Trump's health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, together with Elon Musk, RFK Jr. is actively undermining the institutions that protect public health and the safety of all Americans. Now, we know that RFK Jr. already has a history of outrageous medical opinions and a dangerous anti-vax record. Now, let's just look at the measles alone. Before the measles vaccine, we know that measles would kill 400 to 500 American children annually. Now, after, of course, that vaccine was released, that number fell to almost nothing. But now, with RFK's anti-vax movement growing and his dysfunction at HHS, we've seen over 600 confirmed measles cases across 22 jurisdictions, and that, of course, is not a coincidence. We also know that this is also just the beginning. This committee is not serious about actually taking on the public health threat of measles, which, by the way, our measles cases today is 50 times higher than we have trans athletes in college sports, yet they obsess about that every single day. The committee is obsessed with things that don't matter, but not the public health of actual Americans and children. But by the way, children are now actually dying. And we know that, of course, that's just the beginning. RFK Jr. has said that 5G and Wi-Fi can cause brain damage, ADHD, radiation sickness. He's said that pesticides are actually turning people transgender. He's even questioned whether HIV causes AIDS. He's made comments, of course, that alkyl nitrite, better known as poppers the sum, is the actual cause of AIDS. He said during a campaign event that 100% of the people who died, the first 1,000 who had AIDS, were people who were addicted to poppers. In his 2021 book and 2023 interview with the New York Times and New York Magazine, he repeated claims that question the causes of AIDS despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. In my opinion, RFK Jr. has been and will always be a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. He should be anywhere near HHS, medical opinion, and our research in this country. Now, Dr. Kessler, I hate to have to even ask you this, but is there any serious medical evidence that HIV does not cause AIDS?
No.
Thank you. And that's exactly why these cuts by DOGE and RFK Jr. to HIV research, treatment, prevention are so dangerous. Public health experts warn that these actions will set us back decades. Now, despite Donald Trump's 2019 State of the Union promise to end the HIV epidemic, we've seen over $800 million in HIV research actually cut. HHS, the Office of Infectious Disease and HIV Policy has been shuttered. CDC surveillance efforts have been gutted. PEPFAR, the Global Fund, all, of course, life-saving initiatives are being dismantled. Now, Dr. Kessler, you led the effort to fast-track approval for life-saving AIDS programs. Can you just briefly, in a sentence or two, explain how DOGE is going after the work?
I also chaired the board of the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. You know, with President Bush, the son, right, that was, the goal was to stop mother-to-child transmission throughout the world of HIV. It was the moral conscience of this nation, right? Global health relies on America, and that has been drastically cut.
That's absolutely right, sir. And we also know that RFK Jr., while this is happening globally and here back home, he's fired 10,000 people from his agency and then claimed that 2,000 of those was actually a mistake. So firing people, claiming they're a mistake, gutting the agency, taking away support from life-saving programs, spreading anti-vaccine conspiracy theories, that's what RFK Jr. right now is all about. And these aren't just mistakes, these are life or death decisions. Critical staff have been lost. Experts overseeing medicines, food safety, and medical devices, as we know, have been shut or let go, and we're incredibly concerned. I want to read this quote by former FDA Commissioner Robert Califf. Quote, "The FDA, as we've known, is finished. With most of the leaders, institutional knowledge, and a deep understanding of product development and safety no longer being employed, it is totally unacceptable that Congress is doing nothing to prevent, of course, this absolute destruction of our public health infrastructure. We need to stop this now." And with that, I yield back.
Gentlemen, yield back. I just have to comment, Mr. Garcia, in all good faith. The predecessor for the ranking member, Mr. Raskin, said that those of us who wondered if COVID came from the lab at Wuhan, we were conspiracy theorists. And when we started suggesting that maybe former President Biden was in mental decline, that we were conspiracy theorists. And now, there's just books coming out by all these Democrat journalists every day saying what we had wondered too. I'm not defending or trashing what you said about Robert F. Kennedy. It's just that conspiracy theories are in the eyes of the beholder. So,
Sir, do you think that children should be getting the measles vaccine?
That
That
children,
children should be receiving the measles vaccine?
all my children are vaccinated.
And do you think that we should be getting vaccinated for COVID?
Well, I think there's a lot of questions about COVID that we need answered. But measles, yes.
And
I recognize this.
And again, our current HHS secretary is a anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and that is a fact. He caused a measles outbreak in another country that caused the death. Absolutely, that caused.
No, he did not.
He absolutely did.
That's
That
a
is that is
lie.
proven
RFK did not cause a measles outbreak.
Miss Green,
you sound
Miss Green,
ignorant.
you are an
That's
anti-vax.
ignorant,
You are
and that's
an
a lie.
anti-vax conspiracy
no, I'm
theorist
for
yourself.
choice. I'm
You're
for
the
parents
number one
and people
anti-vax
choosing.
conspiracy theorist.
That was my fault.
Mr. Chairman, am I
Vaccines kill
recognized? Am I recognized?
Our witnesses were snoozing, so I had to spice it up a little bit.
Wake up.
For what purpose does the gentleman, Mr. Garcia, seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk. It's Garcia, number 1.
Thank you, sir. The clerk will distribute the amendment to all members. The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to the fiscal year 2025 Budget Reconciliation Committee print providing for reconciliation pursuant to House Concurrent Resolution 14, offered by Mr. Garcia of California.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read. I reserve a point of order. The gentleman, Mr. Garcia, is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on his amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that it's very clear from all of us that today's debate and discussion has made the House Republican agenda very clear. It's giveaways to billionaires, huge cuts to health care and Social Security, attacks on due process, and we should not lose sight, of course, of the other big crisis happening right now that Donald Trump, of course, is causing. Now, in the coming weeks, every American is going to be impacted by Donald Trump's insane and destructive trade and tariff agenda. Now, we already know that the Trump tariffs are just a sales tax that hits the poor and working people the hardest. I also represent one of the biggest ports in the U.S., the second largest container port in the country. And I'll tell you right now that goods simply aren't coming. Last week, trucking volumes coming out of L.A. collapsed to levels we only see during Christmas and New Year's. Trucking, which is the #1 job for non-college educated men, are seeing huge rollbacks. We could also see huge numbers of bankruptcies and layoffs in the coming months as the supply chain freezes up. Now, small businesses, we know, won't be able to buy the goods they sell. Prices will skyrocket for products, and others may simply vanish from the shelves. The uncertainty is just as dangerous, whether you're in shipping, in trucking, a small business, in the import or export business. All of these businesses are being impacted by the Trump tariffs that are nothing but pure chaos. Businesses and small businesses are going to be hit first, but our consumers will be next. These tariffs won't bring back jobs because no firm can invest in new factories. There is too much uncertainty, and businesses cannot plan long-term tariff rates, and they can't just import machines or construction materials. The job market is just too uncertain. These Trump tariffs won't bring us a better deal because China won't even pick up Donald Trump's calls. And he's beginning to look more desperate every single day. No one benefits from this insane and dangerous trade agenda. But there is maybe one group that appears to be benefiting, and that is connected insiders. We know that prior to these Trump tariff announcements and in between, there have been people, including members of Congress, maybe some on this committee, that have purchased between tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock. By the way, between April 8th and 9th, the day before President Trump caused his sweeping global tariff crisis. Now, we know that even the day before Trump's announcement, a certain member and maybe others dumped between $50,000 and $100,000 in Treasury bills, according to required public disclosures made to the House. Now, of course, there's no direct evidence today that anyone has been committed of doing any wrongdoing, and certainly we have no evidence that anyone had any advance notice of what Trump was doing and his decision to undo some of the tariffs. But we do know that the day before the announcement, Trump posted, and I quote, "This is a great time to buy," end quote. This should raise concerns to all of us. The public needs to trust us. Who knew about Trump's chaotic tariff announcements? who invested in the stock market, and what insider information did they know. Now, we don't know specifics of the announcement, of course, and who was in the room and made these decisions, and who purchased all the stock. We also don't know who's getting direct insider information on future announcements and future deals. So this amendment brings clarity, and it's quite simple. It will suspend the implementation of this toxic and dangerous legislation if we determine that the president or the head of any executive agency or any member or employee or contractor of DOGE is found to have committed insider trading related to the imposition of the tariffs. This is a common sense, good government measure to ensure trust and honesty and to bring a certainty to our tariff policy. It removes an incentive to fuel chaos in order to profit and will provide much needed certainty. I urge all members to support this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak on the amendment. I will be in opposition to the amendment. I'm also in opposition, along with all my colleagues, one would hope on both sides of the aisle, to insider trading that results in personal benefit for any Republican or any Democrat. Today's legislation is not the venue for that. I'm going to oppose the amendment, but again, I offer to myself and my colleagues in my office at the avail of my Democrat colleagues to work towards legislation and investigation into any illicit or illegal insider trading that may be found to exist, including within this body, but so, of course, to include the executive branch. So I'm in opposition to the amendment. I yield the balance of my time. Does anyone else seek recognition? Ms. Luna of Florida is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Higgins. First of all, I obviously am supporting what the Oversight Republican Committee is doing here for this entire process, but I did want to speak to Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, please let it be known, if you would like to do a discharge petition banning insider trading for members of Congress, I will happily support that. I think that it is disgusting that people do that. I share Mr. Higgins' sentiment, and I think that a majority of the American people want that. So I'd be happy to support that. We can get the ball rolling. Discharge petition away on that, please. Thank you.
Well, if I can respond to that, I appreciate that, Representative Luna. I agree with you.
Does the gentlelady yield her time? Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Representative Luna. I also agree with you. There should be absolutely no insider trading in Congress. In fact, I believe there should be no stock trading of individual stocks by members of Congress, period. I support legislation to do so, and so I'm looking forward to a conversation to move this issue forward. So thank you.
The gentleman yields. Do any other members wish to speak on this amendment? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I want to just start, of course, by thanking all of our witnesses for being here today. I appreciate your time. I've said from the beginning and from our first DOGE subcommittee meeting that we've really not talked about government efficiency or any real serious legislative work. But even I am surprised that this subcommittee is now apparently in charge of policing women's sports. Now, this is nothing to do with our committee's jurisdiction, as said earlier, and nothing to do with helping the American people. Now, Republicans in Congress are trying to destroy our health care and social safety net, as we've seen them do over and over again. Elon Musk is destroying critical medical research programs. We have a measles outbreak. We have an anti-vax health secretary. But apparently this committee wants to spend its time bullying trans kids and athletes and arguing about fencing tournaments. This is not only outrageous, it's also dangerous. Now, this committee is supposed to be about saving taxpayer dollars. And let's be really clear. Mr. Layfeld, USA Fencing doesn't receive large taxpayer-funded grants and doesn't really receive federal funding. Is that correct?
Sir, we do not receive a penny in federal funding.
So you do not receive a penny of federal funding, and we're spending our time in the Government Efficiency Committee debating a fencing tournament and your association, that of you which receive no federal dollars. Let's be clear. All kids and people deserve to be able to participate in sports. And USA Fencing and other sports have the right to lay out rules to make sure their sport is fair and safe. And we know that transgender youth and athletes experience all kinds of mistreatment because of their gender identity. This includes bullying in schools, family rejection, threats of violence, even by some in Congress, and other discrimination. Now, sports participation can actually help overcome some of this vulnerability. Now, we have a wide range of views on this committee, but I want to make sure that people are aware there is some bipartisan consensus. Here's a quote from one of my Republican colleagues who's actually on this committee today, which I want to read. I find it encouraging. It says, "I strongly support LGBTQ rights and equality. No one should be discriminated against. I have friends and family that identify as LGBTQ. Understanding how they feel and how they've been treated is important. Having been around gay, lesbian, and transgender people has informed my opinion over my lifetime." Now, Ms. Gosgraves, do you know who said this by any chance?
I don't know.
This was actually Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who's, I know, waved on to our committee today. Now, Madam Chair, I'd like to insert into the record this article on CNN that says, titled, "Nancy Mace, now targeting transgender lawmaker, calls herself pro-transgender rights in 2023. Madam Chairwoman?
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, Congresswoman Mace, of course, is here today. Now, in November of just last year, Congresswoman Mace posted 326 times on social media about trans people and their access to bathrooms in just one 72-hour period. That's a fact. So I'd like to introduce another article from Newsweek, and it's entitled, this is the title, "Nancy Mace has posted 326 times in the last 72 hours about bathrooms." Madam Chair, can I introduce this into the record?
Without objection.
Thank you. I point this out because it's actually important context. Republicans accuse Democrats of focusing too much on LGBTQ plus issues or trans issues. But we want to talk about protecting Social Security. We want to talk about protecting the cost of living. We want to talk about lowering prices. We want to make sure that all people have health care. But Republicans are so obsessed with demonizing trans people that we are wasting time in our Government Efficiency Committee talking about trans people that like fencing. Now let's remember, according to congressional testimony from the head of the NCAA, there are less than 10 trans college athletes in 2024. That's less than 10 out of 500,000 total NCAA athletes. Less than 10 out of 500,000. Now, Congresswoman Mace has posted about this issue hundreds and hundreds of times. That's equal to hundreds of individual posts per athlete. All the while, we're ignoring the real issues. I want to remind everyone that we've seen 935 confirmed cases of the measles as of May 1st, according to the CDC. Nearly 1,000 children are getting sick while our country is hit by crisis after crisis. Let's focus on the 930 adults and kids with measles versus the 10 trans athletes that are participating in college sports. It is obvious to the American public that this issue is being exploited by extremists to divide the American public. It's shameful. It's been clear that DOGE is not about government efficiency. It's an attack on vulnerable people. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize.
Of service to this committee, please reach out to us. And again, thank you for the work that you and President Trump are doing. I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. I now, I think, recognize our last member making comments today. Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Madam Secretary. And you said that you're committed to complying with the Constitution, which we, of course, all appreciate and think is important. Now, we all know that the Fifth Amendment states, and I just want to be very clear, that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Fifth Amendment. Just to be clear in a simple yes or no, this actually says person. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
Correct.
Thank you. And you are aware that person has been defined by the Supreme Court repeatedly multiple times means citizens and non-citizens. Simple yes or no, is that correct?
Correct, I believe.
Thank you. In an April 7th ruling just recently, the Supreme Court has reaffirmed, and I'll quote, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process under the law in the context of removal proceedings." But of course, the Department reported 230 people being imprisoned indefinitely in brutal prison. We've deported U.S. citizens, as noted today, children without proper protection. We've illegally arrested students, and we know that just one of these students was released just last week, and you were mandated to do so. Now, the Fifth Amendment is clear. Madam Secretary, you committed to uphold the Constitution, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And you now, of course, commit to following the Fifth Amendment, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Madam Secretary, you are violating that amendment as we speak, and you are breaking your oath. You are deporting people, and the department is deporting people without due process. We cannot deport U.S. citizens. Without due process, there is nothing that Donald Trump could essentially be stopped in grabbing people off the street. That's happening today. Now, maybe someone in government might not like your tattoos. Maybe they don't like how somebody votes. Maybe they don't want to see how someone represents your constituents in Congress. But if you can't see a judge, no one can protect you. And I hope that you and I and everyone here can agree with that. And apparently, not even the Supreme Court actually matters when it comes to the case, of course, of Kilmar Garcia. But let's remember that we're not just deporting people. We're sending some of them to be locked up in one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. Now, Madam Secretary, you've heard this case today, but I have to speak about it one more time. I think it's really important. This is Andrew Romero. He had an appointment to come to this country to claim asylum. We gave him that appointment. The United States government gave him his asylum appointment. He comes for his appointment. He passes a credible fear interview. He's a gentle person as described by his family. He's openly gay. He was leaving his country for persecution of being gay. He did everything right, claimed asylum, that was legal. And then we sent him to a dangerous prison at the border with no due process. There are claims about his tattoos. He has his parents' names on his tattoos and 2 crowns that relate to a festival back in his hometown. We are paying to lock this young gentleman up forever. What I would ask is the ambassador in El Salvador, we have asked for proof of life of Andrew. He has had no access to lawyers or family since he has been taken over a month now. No one knows if he's even alive. His mother just wants to know if he is alive. So my ask to you, Madam Secretary, is the same that I asked the ambassador. Can we do a proof of life check on Andrew just to see if he is alive?
Congressman, we are utilizing the tools that Congress has given us to apply due process to individuals. We are doing that for every person, and we are making sure that we're following what you have given us as far as guidance and how things should be implemented.
Would you commit to just letting his mother know, as a mother to mother, if Andrew is alive? He was given an asylum appointment by the United States government. We gave him an appointment. We said, Andrew, come to the border at this time to claim asylum. He was taken to a foreign prison in El Salvador. His mother just wants to know if he is alive. Can we check and do a wellness check on him?
Our asylum applications are different than the granting of asylum, and I don't know the specifics of this individual case. This individual is in El Salvador, and the appeal would be best made to the president and to the government of El Salvador on this. This is not under my jurisdiction.
Madam Secretary, you have said that CCOT in El Salvador is one of the tools in the toolbox that you have. You have said that and have been quoted as saying that. You and the president have the ability to check if Andrew is alive and if he's not being harmed. Would you commit at least into looking and asking El Salvador if he is alive?
This is a question that's best asked to the president and the government of El Salvador.
And I think you know very well that you could ask that question. What you are choosing to do, Madam Secretary, is disregard this young man's life, this young man's family, who was given an appointment by the United States. I think it is shameful that you won't even request to see if this young man is alive. His family has no idea, has no access to lawyers. I would hope that we would have the humanity to just check if this young man is okay. With that, I yield back. It's shameful.
Gentleman yields. I think we've covered everyone. Mr. Rankin.
To testify today, one of our witnesses, and I think it's important to note this, Mr. Turner, you're one of our witnesses today, an expert on economics and a bunch of other things.
Not economics.
Mr. Turner, you were invited to testify as an expert on government spending. This is your post. Is this correct? Did you post this, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you called Social Security a Ponzi scheme.
100%.
Which we know Elon Musk has also done. I'm glad you admitted it. Social Security is a government-sponsored Ponzi scheme, as you said. Now,
What about the second part, though, sir? I should be able to keep 100% of my
you can read the whole
money
thing. It's right
and
up
not
here.
watch government waste
Thank
it,
you, sir.
giving
This is my
$9
time,
billion.
sir. Thank you, sir. My
Giving
time.
$9 billion to
Reclaiming
climate
my
groups.
time, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you. Thank you, sir. A Ponzi scheme. And so I think it's interesting, of course, that as one of our Republican witnesses is calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, and that's a person that we should be taking advice from here today. Without Social Security, 22 million people would be pushed into poverty. That includes over 16 million seniors and nearly 1 million children. And in fact, Elon Musk has also said, and agreed with you, sir, that this is a Ponzi scheme. I think it's ironic that you are one of our witnesses talking about efficiency when you want to attack the single best program that we have to support people, not just out of poverty, but across this country to uplift them to ensure they can afford a decent life. We on this committee need to work every single day, not just to protect Social Security, but to hold Republicans accountable for attacking Medicare, Medicaid, for attacking Social Security and the programs that we all depend on. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Timmons from California.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're obviously here for another hearing, which has literally nothing to do with government efficiency. This committee, of course, has talked about fencing. We've gone after foreign aid, and now we're going after community nonprofits, which actually help and support people. And our committee is doing all of this without ever once getting testimony from Elon Musk, the head of DOGE, of which, of course, this committee is now named from, and, of course, who's now apparently leaving the White House as well. Now, every Democrat on this subcommittee voted to subpoena Elon Musk so he could come here and testify and be accountable to Congress. But that was blocked by our Republican colleagues, which, of course, in of itself is irresponsible and outrageous. And you would think that Republicans on this committee would want Elon Musk to testify just as much as we do. Now, all our Republican colleagues might also want to ask Elon Musk about this message, which he actually just posted yesterday. Now I'm going to read this message Elon Musk posted. It says, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. And I'll emphasize, shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong, you know it. Now this was actually just yesterday. He actually posted this, which pretty rough, if you ask me. And on top of that, I would have printed it out, but just 20 minutes ago, he posted another message that says, call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay, kill the bill. And of course, we know the only people who voted for this bill are actually House Republicans, including every Republican in this room. All these Republicans here on this committee, they all voted for this bill that now Elon Musk is saying should be killed and is saying is awful. I actually agree with Elon Musk on this. It takes health care away from 13 million Americans. It cuts food for veterans and seniors, all to finance, of course, huge tax breaks for the wealthy. Now, it's also interesting because Chairwoman Green, I understand, now regrets voting for this bill, as she mentioned yesterday. Is that correct, Chairwoman Green?
Are you yielding me time?
No, I'm just asking if you, I think you say now you regret voting for the bill. Is that correct?
The bill actually destroys what you guys voted for the past 4 years, and I'm proud to have voted for that bill to fund border security,
actually,
to
Chairwoman
deport
Green,
all these illegals you guys let in the country.
Chairwoman. Chairman, yesterday you actually said that you regret actually voting for the bill. You posted after Elon's tweet that you didn't know certain provisions were in it and that you would have voted no if you had known. And so obviously you didn't do a thorough review of the bill. And I'm not surprised, of course, that Republicans in this Congress are now going back and forth on the bill. They voted for the bill, now they want to oppose it. We don't know what to actually believe. And for instance, this is the same thing that's happening with other big programs like Social Security, which we know Elon Musk and DOGE have actually talked and attacked constantly over and over again. We know how badly already customer service has been hurt. People are waiting in long lines at Social Security offices, all because of these DOGE efforts. Now, again, Chairwoman Green invited to testify today one of our witnesses, and I think it's important to note this. Mr. Turner, you're one of our witnesses today, an expert on economics and a bunch of other things.
Not economics.
Mr. Turner, you were invited to testify as an expert on government spending. This is your post. Is this correct? Did you post this, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you called Social Security a Ponzi scheme.
100%.
Which we know Elon Musk has also done. I'm glad you admitted it. Social Security is a government-sponsored Ponzi scheme, as you said. Now,
What about the second part, though, sir? I should be able to keep 100% of my
you can read the whole
money
thing. It's right
and
up
not
here.
watch government waste
Thank
it,
you, sir.
giving
This is my
$9
time,
billion.
sir. Thank you, sir. My
Giving
time.
$9 billion to
Reclaiming
climate
my
groups.
time, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you. Thank you, sir. A Ponzi scheme. And so I think it's interesting, of course, that as one of our Republican witnesses is calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, and that's a person that we should be taking advice from here today. Without Social Security, 22 million people would be pushed into poverty. That includes over 16 million seniors and nearly 1 million children. And in fact, Elon Musk has also said, and agreed with you, sir, that this is a Ponzi scheme. I think it's ironic that you are one of our witnesses talking about efficiency when you want to attack the single best program that we have to support people, not just out of poverty, but across this country to uplift them to ensure they can afford a decent life. We on this committee need to work every single day, not just to protect Social Security, but to hold Republicans accountable for attacking Medicare, Medicaid, for attacking Social Security and the programs that we all depend on. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Timmons from.
Recognize Mr. Garcia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I want to just start by noting that we know that certainly AI can be an important tool for federal government, for our federal workforce. That we always want to make sure that we're centering those that are working in our government and uplift the work that our federal workers do every single day. But we know that AI can navigate and help government become more efficient and intuitive in many cases. I think we should be honest about that. It can also help constituents get services faster. I've seen this happen at the local level. I've seen it happen, of course, now happening at the state level and here in Congress as well. We also know that many agencies just need to move more quickly, be more efficient. And AI can be a tool when you respect the federal workforce and work with the federal workforce on how we make these implementations happen. AI can also be used, of course, on issues around red tape. I saw this happen, is seeing happening in cities across the United States. And we can analyze data better and faster. We can also work to empower our federal workforce in ways that they can use AI to help them do their jobs. And I think that's an important piece of this. It's also clear, though, that AI can be incredibly dangerous, incredibly disruptive, and certainly without guardrails can cause real harm to the American public and to the work that we're all trying to do. Now, deployment, of course, is going to take investments into work, but I do have some serious concerns about how AI is used, and it's particularly in this administration. And I want to talk about one of them, which I think is actually really, really important. So this, of course, is Robert Kennedy Jr., someone who I consider to be an extreme anti-vaxxer. I believe for him to be a conspiracy theorist, and certainly has no business being the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, take one step back. We just went through a pandemic where 1.3 million Americans lost their lives, where businesses were shut down across the country, where healthcare was brought to the forefront of the public consciousness. And we know how important getting real medical vaccine testing information is to the American public. And right now we're dealing with measles outbreaks in Texas and other places. Information needs to be peer-reviewed, fact-checked, and done in a way that is responsible. But here, of course, we know that there was recently a Make America Healthy report that was put out by RFK Jr. and HHS. And I'm going to include in the article just this quote. There were dozens of errors, including broken links, wrong issue numbers, and missing or incorrect authors. Some studies were misstated to back up the report's conclusions, or more damningly, didn't exist at all. At least 7 of the cited sources were entirely fictitious. What we do know from many folks that have read this report is it appears that AI played a role in developing a report about the public health of Americans. This is something that we should be incredibly concerned with. And let's be clear, RFK Jr. has a long history already of dangerous, unscientific beliefs. He said 5G and Wi-Fi cause brain damage. He said that you don't believe that HIV causes AIDS. He said that water can make you transgender. These are very concerning positions. And the fact that he puts out this report, and HHS, which has been long respected as an important agency, puts out a report that is full of AI errors and AI-generated content, should concern every member of Congress on both sides of the aisle. This is incredibly devastating when you, on top of that, look at all the cuts that he's making to NIH and other health agencies across the United States. And so this is, for me, very concerning, and it should be for all of us. Professor Snyder, I want to is it fair to say that these kind of errors in important government documents and health reports that could be due to AI are concerning to us and we should be concerned about?
They are concerning, but put the blame where it belongs. I mean, maybe the AI is not suitable for the task, or maybe the human who used the AI didn't check the work. And that would have been true if the human tasked an intern. I mean, so it's really a matter of what's the process by which, by whatever gives you your first draft, do you look at it and make sure it's correct? We've seen the same problem with attorneys submitting briefs into courts that have fake precedents. I mean, yes, the AI made the mistake, but it's the human who puts their name to it, who says this is correct. They're the ones responsible. I mean, I teach this stuff. I tell my students to use AI, but you're responsible for plagiarism. You're responsible for accuracy.
I agree with you completely. And sir, I also spent 10 years in the classroom teaching as well. And
it's really weird now.
And so I same. And I think that the idea that we're now seeing so much AI-generated content produced in our universities is a different topic. But let me just conclude with this. I think your point is exactly right. AI can be a tool, but there has to be the human element. The workforce has to be a part of it. It has to be a responsible user of AI, and so that we don't end up with medical reports that are false. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
I'm sorry?
I have a unanimous consent request.
Proceed.
First, I'd like to seek unanimous consent to enter into the record this article. Counties that provided sanctuary to undocumented immigrants saw falling crime rates, steady fines.
Without objection, so ordered.
Second, data shows sanctuary policies make communities safer, healthier, and more prosperous.
Without objection, so ordered.
And third, Trump team focuses deportation on immigration numbers, not criminals.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Mr. Garcia from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our governors for being here as well. Thank you all for your service to your states and to our country. I want to just be clear, Donald Trump clearly and House Republicans are really not serious about helping our states and our cities. Before I came to Congress, I was a mayor and I worked closely with our police department, incredible men and women that worked really hard to promote policies that actually make the public safer. Now, during that time, our city actually reported some of the lowest murder rates in history. And I've been in close touch with our current police departments, our local sheriff, and local law enforcement. And I want to be clear. Donald Trump is intentionally provoking chaos, hate, and division. Now, Trump is trying to intimidate. He's using our military to create fear, and there's no legal justification for his actions. I strongly believe he's trying to keep American citizens from peacefully making their voices heard. We just had a demonstration in my hometown of Long Beach, California. Over 500 people showed up. There was no vandalism, there were no arrests, and it was peaceful, and I want to thank them. Trump is trying to make it very clear that this is about intimidation. I believe he's fueling violence on our streets because he thinks it's politically helpful to him. And I actually want to remind our committee that when Donald Trump was president in 2020, that's actually when we saw surges in violent crime across the country. They increased under Donald Trump's watch. We should be focused on actual public safety threats, but we know that Donald Trump is taking federal law enforcement away from actually investigating serious crimes and cartels. And if you ask any police department, police chief across the country in your states, they will tell you they want their police focused on the issues in their neighborhoods, in the state, traffic violations, speeding, domestic violence. Those are the issues that people want to see addressed. Law enforcement should be focused on those issues, and I know the governors agree. Back in my home district in Downey, California, we've had agents just yesterday grab people in front of churches, their houses of worship. Agents refused to identify themselves and show warrants. An elderly man was dropping off his granddaughter at their local church and was detained in front of the property and the family. That is outrageous and should be disturbing to every single American. And we know this does actually nothing to protect the public. But this, of course, is Donald Trump's playbook. He doesn't care about the safety of the American people. He fuels hate and fear. It's no coincidence that Donald Trump is fueling chaos. At the same time, he's advancing legislation which the American people know is completely toxic and harmful to this country. We're looking at 16 million people losing health care. It's being debated right now as we speak in the Senate. Nutrition cuts for seniors and veterans, huge tax cuts for the wealthiest and the largest corporations in this country. And while this is being debated, Donald Trump is causing chaos and fear across our country. I want to ask the governors in the remaining time that we have. It is clear that health care and these impacts of this bill will impact all three of your states greatly. And so I have a brief question. What is the bigger risk to your state? Ripping away health care from millions of people across the country, thousands and thousands in your own states, or the law-abiding, working, undocumented folks in your states? And I'll let you each go ahead and give that answer. We'll start with Governor Pritzker.
Thank you very much, Congressman Garcia. There are 770,000 people who stand to lose their health care in the state of Illinois, perhaps even more, depending on how this bill turns out. And I can tell you that there are people who are dependent upon Medicaid and Medicare to survive. I am deeply, deeply concerned about the deaths that will occur as a result of the cuts, not to mention that we're taking away SNAP benefits from families that need it most and children. veteran services, people who have PTSD, who need to see their therapist at a certain time, now have to wait much longer periods of time because of the threat of this bill. So I'm deeply concerned. DOGE has taken away one of our facilities in the state of Illinois already. It's a huge problem, and that is the threat.
Thank you, Governor Walz.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. In Minnesota, in 2023, we were ranked as the top state for healthcare, home of the Mayo Clinic. We have more people covered almost than any other state. This bill would take 250,000 people off of healthcare, make it more difficult, reduce the outcomes we're getting. 40% of those are children receive their care through that way, and over 70% of nursing home patients. It would be catastrophic, and the state has built it up to improve lives of all of our citizens.
Thank you. And finally, Governor Hochul.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and I'm proud in the state of New York that 95% of people in our state have health care coverage. But these devastating cuts will throw off at least 1.5 million New Yorkers, and not just those individuals, but when hospitals in rural areas have to shut down, the entire community will lose important services. So this will have a ripple effect through our economy and hurt more than just the people who lose their Medicaid, and it is devastating and absolutely unwarranted. We encourage everyone to stand up, speak up on behalf of their constituents, especially those from the state of New York who represent rural areas. They're counting on you.
Thank you. Governors, I thank you, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get a kick out of
Now going to recognize the sponsor of the bill, Mr. Donalds, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Comer, for bringing the D.C. Crimes Act before committee. Crime in the nation's capital has really been a stain on this great city for far too long, and it's really the responsibility of decades of really weak leadership has allowed it to spiral out of control. Rather than focusing on cleaning up the city and making it safe for residents and visitors, district officials and the D.C. Council have refused to enforce the law. They've put criminals back out on the street and have continuously pursued progressive, soft-on-crime policies. For instance, the crime data shows that juveniles make up the majority of violent arrests in D.C., from crimes like robbery and carjackings. And instead of addressing the clear epidemic of youth crime in the city, the D.C. Council increased the age of youth offenders to individuals 24 years old and younger. That means fully grown legal adults in the District of Columbia can receive sentences meant for children. This is patently insane, and Americans across the board are sick of this kind of absurdity. Since the D.C. officials have not only known about the city's crime issues for years, but have actively aided and abetted the continuance of it, Congress has a duty, and I stress this again, as the federal enclave, Congress has a duty to step in and restore law and order to the capital city of our great nation. The president's actions and immediate decline in crime show that lawlessness is a choice, and we do not have to live with that choice. This is why I've introduced the D.C. Crimes Act. Simply put, my bill lowers D.C.'s definition of youth from under 25 years old to under 18 years old. 2, it removes the ability of judges to sentence youth offenders below the mandatory minimum, therefore deterring juvenile crime. And 3rd, it requires the District of Columbia's Attorney General to establish a public website containing much-needed statistics on juvenile crime in Washington, D.C. It is our constitutional duty as members of Congress to oversee the acts happening within the District of Columbia. This is something that's really been going on for far too long. The city has not responded to what has clearly not been in the best interest of the nation's capital. And I know that there's many arguments about home rule when it comes to D.C., but it should be remembered at all times that our Constitution in this matter is clear. The district is a federal enclave. It is a federal enclave. That has not changed since the founding of the Republic. And so if the D.C. City Council, not its residents, if the D.C. City Council will not do what is necessary and appropriate to make sure that the Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, is safe, then it is a requirement of Congress and the President of the United States to do so. Thank you, Chairman Comer. I yield.
Chair now recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just, of course, another attempt by this committee to disenfranchise over 700,000 taxpayers of the District of Columbia and their ability to write their own laws, to govern their own city and community. Now, this committee, of course, has now spent more time interfering in DC's local law affairs than almost any other issue. This bill, of course, is trying to amend the Youth Rehabilitation Act. Now, the DC Council's bill, just to be clear, was the subject of months and months of hearings, community meetings, considerable debate. Folks from the neighborhoods actually came together as they worked and crafted this actual legislation. Now, the considerable debate among DC's residents and their elected representatives should be considered in this moment. That's the way democracy works. And if DC residents don't like these policies, they can vote for new policies or they can vote for new representatives at the local level. Our committee is not talking about violent crime in Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama or other places, or federal issues that are important to us like gun violence, or even enforcing the laws that are currently on the books to keep guns out of the wrong hands. But let's talk about what this Republican bill would actually do. The DC Crimes Act amends DC's Youth Rehabilitation Act, which allows judges to give alternative sentences to young adults and to seal their conviction records. Now, my Republican colleagues on this committee from Alabama, Florida, Michigan, New York, and other places have laws in their states similar to this actual Rehabilitation Act. The sponsor of this bill, of course, from Florida, and we should actually examine Florida's Youthful Offender Act. Florida first enacted this law in 1978. That's 7 years before DC enacted this law. Under Florida's law, a person cannot be sentenced to more than 6 years in prison. Under DC's law, there is no ceiling. In fact, the DC law is stricter. Now, under both Florida and DC's laws, mandatory minimum sentences can be waived. But the DC Crimes Act repeals the mandatory minimum waiver, which would be stricter than in Florida. Under DC's law, the maximum eligible age for alternative sentencing is 24. That is higher than Florida's maximum age, which is 20. The DC Crimes Act lowers the maximum eligible age to 18. So to be clear, DC's maximum age is not only an outlier, but the maximum eligible age is higher than in Michigan than in DC. And the list goes on and on for different states across the country. Again, regardless of what you think of this bill, we'll continue to take away the rights of the elected officials that represent this community and continue to move back the progress this community has made through numerous meetings and debate of the council. We oppose this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I'll recognize myself now for 5 minutes. I support H.R. 4922, a bill providing common sense reforms to the District of Columbia Criminal Code. It's clear to members of the committee and the public that DC's soft on crime policy